Hi everyone. So thanks, Christine, for joining us and giving the all the audience and talking about how a big major brand approach marketing in the period of COVID. You've been doing marketing for Zurich Insurance from Barcelona, so thank you very much. And I will let you take the lead on that. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I want to thank you for attending my talk. I'm hoping you're having a great and productive conference day so far. So here today, I'm virtually in front of you to talk about mobile app marketing in the time of COVID. I'd actually like to start by, first of all, if you are there, I would love to know where you're from. So please feel free to write your name and where you're currently based at in the chat if you do have the time. I'd be really happy to know who I'm talking to. This virtual experience, this virtual talk is a little bit different than I think most of us have done in the past when we go to conferences. So I'd like to be a little bit more in touch with you by getting to know if you're actually also somewhere based near or some. So yeah, and I will like to read that later and say hi personally. But yeah, thank you. There. So I'd like to start by saying mabuhay. My name is Christinne Cuyugan. I'm originally from the Philippines, but I've been living and working in Europe since 2013. I'm currently the global project lead for mobile app marketing at Zurich Insurance. So Zurich is a multi-line insurance company operating globally with its headquarters based in Switzerland. I'm personally working out of Barcelona, in Spain, in the Zurich Digital Delivery Center. I'm responsible for overall providing my expertise on optimizing for product growth of multiple mobile apps within the finance and insurance space, which were produced by the different business units and product lines in Zurich Insurance Group. So prior to joining Zurich, I actually worked for Runtastic. It's the digital health and fitness business unit of Adidas. In that previous experience, I was based in Austria and I used to manage and execute the Adidas Runnings app, ASO, UA, and for a time, its CRM activities and strategy. I've also done a couple of freelancing. So for Language Drops, which is a language learning app with a fully remote team, and for Qgo, which is a B2B startup whose aim was to make use smarter in Austria. So my previous and current work experiences have been on a couple of different mobile app industries, which is why today I wanted to talk about mobile apps in general and give an analysis on what happened during the last 3 months as the world faced a common crisis, which is the COVID-19. I'd like to talk about three things. So first, how has COVID affected mobile apps in general? I'm going to be citing a couple of good industry sources to give a clearer picture of the apps landscape. Second, what actions have mobile app companies done in order to react to the sudden shift in mobile engagement? So from experience in the three areas of mobile growth, right? So I'll be citing and walking you through examples and three actionable tips on ASO, three actionable tips on UA, and three actionable tips on CRM, which I have noticed a couple of mobile app companies have done in order to stay afloat or in some cases even ride on a wave. Lastly, I'll be posing a question on what to expect. Will these trends last? And if not, how do we, as mobile app marketers, measure the real impact of the crisis on mobile user behavior? So with that, let's get started. One thing is for sure, COVID-19 literally tumbled everyone's expectations and predictions for 2020. So before I actually started this part of the talk, I wanted to say that I actually moved to a different country at the beginning of this year, and I haven't seen much of the city because I was already locked down after 2 or 3 weeks that I was here. And this definitely changed my personal behavior on mobile and also professionally because I have been working with my new colleagues in Zurich completely remote ever since the beginning. So imagine starting a new job and the only interaction you have with your office, well, your potential new office, is actually getting your laptop. It's just different. Like, but the great thing about working in the mobile app industry is that it's possible. And now also working in this industry, we have seen a couple of apps grow out of proportions in terms of growth and engagement as a result of these worldwide quarantines and lockdowns. A report from Branch showed that during certain industries such as social video, hyperlocal social networks, communications, social games, and etc., experienced a jump in mobile activity since March 11, when the WHO declared a pandemic. This makes sense because a change in how we interact with the world and in societies where physical and social distancing is now mandatory, apps became the vehicle for people to keep in touch. Moreover, due to the increase of time we now spend at home, app usage for apps for such as health and fitness, or where I was originally coming from, for indoor training, for example, education apps, and games overall have been experiencing a surge in their traffic and engagement. A good way to visualize this change has been done by Visual Capitalist using Apptopia's and Mo Engaged article on COVID's impact on app popularity. So they defined this engagement quadrant where we could clearly see, depending on which industry you're coming from, how your apps perform during this time period. So as you might have previously heard already today in some talks, people spent 20% more time using mobile apps in the first quarter of 2020 compared to 2019. That's a big jump. Also, app spending went up to $23 billion in this quarter. But that doesn't mean that all apps are experiencing this. There are apps which are also affected negatively, as you can imagine, and it also highly depends on how countries and markets reacted. So, what is allowed in the country, what can be done, and what people feel is the new need for now. So some apps experienced growth, with stable downloads and active users increasing. So a great example would be the online shopping apps. A lot more people are browsing, and a lot of more people have time on their hands to check out catalogs. I'm very curious to hear if there are any e-commerce folks here, for example, if this translates to higher revenue as well, as we can expect that people might actually be trying to save up as well during this time period. And actually, in that sense, I would like to put up a poll right now just to see a rough view on everyone here. So please check out the polls part and please take time to answer the question. I'm gonna have to be honest that it's my first time doing a virtual conference, so I hope you see the poll. But my question is actually, did you see an increase in mobile app engagement translate to increase in mobile app revenues? Give some time for the answer, just because I'm pretty curious like how this would go. It's fluctuating. Okay. Okay, so a lot more people here so far is saying yes, which is pretty good. All right. I'm going to close this poll now. Thanks for everyone who answered it. But yeah, so as you can imagine, like there is a big chance to do something right now. So if you're especially in these quadrants that actually are increasing their engagement and also the increase in revenue follows, you have to react fast in these three sectors that you know you can do something about. So this is going to be ASO, this is going to be UA, and this is going to be CRM. But just to close the loop in the engagement quadrant, I want to mention that some apps experience explosion. So not just growth, explosion. So communication apps, for example, both for personal and professional reasons. So I'm sure you've already heard about Zoom's boom a couple of times. And also, don't lie to me, I know you also have House Party installed because I also do. Because yeah, the need for these kinds of apps just clearly have been bumped due to the situation. On the lower left quadrant is actually the slowdown. So there are apps that have experienced a decreasing downloads and decreasing active users. The biggest examples of industries here would be travel, because restrictions globally and obviously the unrest and uncertainty on when the crisis is going to end has caused this. And the last part, which is actually quite interesting to let's say, even if you're not in the healthcare industry, would be interesting to follow is the emergence quadrant. So some apps whose active users weren't really a lot before, but are steadily increasing as well as their downloads. So an example would be the healthcare apps. So I'm from the Philippines, and I've actually never heard of telemedicine before, and I'm not sure how much of you here also hear that before. But basically, it's I have been seeing a potential increase in the interest for these types of apps. But since this concept is not yet fully normal to people, so for example, not a lot of public or social security insurance covers remote healthcare, it's just an emerging app sector for now. But it does make me wonder if moving forward in this crisis, does this industry evolve to growth? Does this industry have the capacity to evolve to an explosion? So after these analysis, I want now to present to you what have companies done then. What in terms of app store optimization, what in terms of user acquisition, and what in terms of CRM have mobile app companies done to react to their situation. To start with ASO, so App Store Optimization, I do have three tips. So I have noticed three things. First is that mobile app marketers updated their metadata for trending keywords. Obviously, if you're an ASO manager here, you won't simply take up trending keywords that are not relevant for you or your product, but you'll always also find a way to be creative for those that actually it can work for your app. So, for example, Peloton. Um, prior to this, the store listing you see now, which is called Peloton at Home Fitness, the app was actually named Peloton Live Workout Classes. But seeing how home fitness, home training, home and other similar semantic keywords dominated the trending searches in the app stores, their team reacted fast and shipped an update to focus and target these keywords in their metadata. If I am not mistaken, I believe this has caused a greater than 100% increase in their app organic downloads. Um, Another thing that I've actually noticed is that there were apps that updated their screenshots to align with user behavior. So at this moment in time, some features in your application might be better to sell at this moment in time and might be worth it to put in the first three screenshots or even first ones of your store listing, because now is the time to let people know that this is possible. So I've seen, for example, the delivery apps such as DoorDash update the screenshots to communicate to users, for example, that there are still restaurants open for delivery and pickup. It's quite relevant and very timely to know. So in this particular case, without a doubt, I'm sure DoorDash must have increased their install conversion rate. The last tip is to enhance your ratings and reviews strategy, because actually I've noticed several apps enhancing this at this point in time. So prior to the crisis, I personally play a lot of games on my phone and engaged in a lot of apps even before I was stuck at home. But I have never had so much rating prompts served to me in such a short period of time. And in this case, I can only imagine that all of these companies, all of these app marketers are actually trying to leverage this time on people's hands of their users to try and reap some positive reviews and ratings for their app. Because as you can imagine, for ASO, this is key to actually building that social proof for your app. So collecting these and trying to get more positive reviews, especially if you are an app that people are more using right now, it is very valuable. It is very good to understand how your acquired users at this period of time also behave and how they perceive your application. So I think I messed up and already put up the poll that I wanted to ask. So if you haven't had the time, please do answer the next poll that I do have right now up there, which is actually a question about your ASO strategy. Have you updated your metadata, your visuals, or your rating strategy to match the search in mobile organic searches? I've seen a couple of people already answer it. I'm gonna give it a minute for those who haven't to try and do so. And I'm not sure if you're seeing what I'm seeing right now, but it's 33, 33, and 33. So we have a mix of of answers here, but I hope with the three tips I just mentioned, a lot more people would be answering letter C and thinking about doing it soon. Okay, good. It is really a good balance. And I will close this poll now. Good. Yeah, so now I'm moving along to the next steps of the funnel. Let's talk about paid user acquisition. So the first thing I've realized and know as someone who has been heavily launching and optimizing UA campaigns is that the CPMs and volumes, predictions, and trends that I have used in the past clearly do not apply or did not apply in the last 3 and next 3 months. So a couple of companies cut back their marketing spend, and thus it provided lesser competition in certain placements and channels. That's great news for those companies who could afford to not only spend, but also even increase their budget. And this is a hint to the apps belonging to favorable engagement quadrants. I have seen, for example, there are a lot of tools out there, but I've seen Bidalgo released a useful tool to monitor these changes depending on the geos, so for the countries. So you might want to have a look at it later on after this talk. Second thing I've realized is the KPI movements. So again, my target KPIs in terms of creative performance, in terms of revenue performance, and even retention performance just clearly blown out of proportions. They're simply different. Same case as before, the UA managers need to monitor these changes and act accordingly in order to close the gap between their predictions and their current situations. That being said, my third and next tip for you in UA is you need to review your automation rules. So a lot of app marketers have some kind of automation rules in place, especially in terms of bidding and budget shiftings. So you might want to grab your data scientist or take out those CSV exports that you do for reanalysis of this time period. You need to adjust accordingly and make sure you back it up with data you've been receiving in the last days and not the predictions you've had in place prior to the crisis. Oh, and I have a fourth slide, a fourth tip for UA. And actually, if you have seen me in any of my previous talks before, I'm very sarcastic person, but having to do this virtually, it's very hard to make these jokes. So just so that you know that I'm sarcastic, this fourth tip is to serve relevant ads. So obviously, this is sarcastic because even prior to the crisis, even prior to anything, all UA managers here know and have been optimizing on relevance scores to make sure that their ads, the ads that they do serve, are creative, competitive, compelling, and clear. This is like this is a key rule that you can't avoid or you couldn't have escaped from even before this crisis. So make sure that you stay that way or even go beyond it if your app products can actually solve problems which are not solvable by app companies out there as well. So in the photo that I'm showing you now, this is actually I'm based in Spain. I don't speak Spanish, but it actually tells me that I can open a bank account without leaving my home, which is as I mentioned in my previous situation, that is actually going to be perfect for me. This is a great ad to be served because I am looking for a bank account and I do not want to go out there. I want to stay home. So moving on to the third part, which is CRM. I'm gonna breeze through these because actually they're quite self-explanatory, and I'm very sure that a lot of you here in my talk right now have already done something for your apps in terms of product. Because anyway, the key has always been to adapt, right? So on the CRM side, I have seen a lot of companies reassuring their mobile presence. So banking, e-commerce, and any other companies that have physical stores out there are encouraging their users to stay home and yet reassuring them that their services aren't interrupted for they can do the things they would have needed to do in the stores in the mobile app as well. So you need to reassure your mobile presence. I have seen companies putting their users' safety first. So even I've seen companies even developing or extending features, which is a really amazing and completely fast reaction
because they wanted to solve their user need and accompany them in these lonely times. Still, they do their best in putting their users' safety first. So, for example, I have seen a couple of dating apps releasing video chat features so that users can still date during social distancing. I have seen, for example, language learning apps such as Drops, providing more access to their kids' language learning app called Droplets so that teachers can easily use the app to teach their pupils. Lastly, I've also seen multiple companies prioritizing their user needs. Several companies taking the hit and prioritizing user needs over marketing tactics. So, because I think all of the of what I've just mentioned before in terms of ASO, in terms of UA, in terms of CRM, there's a bottom line. And that bottom line is that you need to learn how to adapt depending on your situation. Because as we've discussed in the engagement quadrants, your app might be in a different situation than others. So if it does not apply to you, then do not apply these things. But the key to actually succeeding in mobile app marketing at this time is to know how to adapt. To close the topic, so to close my talk, I actually want to end with the topic of mobile user behavior change because I'm sure that it's on everyone's minds right now. What happens post quarantine? Companies are for sure going to have a different challenge moving forward, meaning we will find each other asking ourselves, can I retain the users we acquired now? And will they show the same user behavior, this similar user engagement after this time period? In that case, I actually want to put up my last poll for the day. I'm putting it up right now as a question before I start my thoughts there. Do you think users acquired during the peak of COVID-19 pandemic have different behavior and thus should be treated with care when doing predictive analytics? So do you think that you would need to separate the users you acquire now to understand how to treat them forward? I'll give it a minute. All right. I'm seeing that 88% said yes here, which is great. 88% has backed it up, but actually, I do believe that yes, you do need to treat them differently. So I will tell you why, and I will tell you how. The why is this underlying assumption that everyone has a different reaction to how the crisis went to. They had different, I've seen it as well. I'm experiencing a different behavior myself just because I have more time in my hands. I have been forced to be at home. And I do not have a lot of things. I mean, I can move my camera around and you will see that I live in a very small apartment. So I do not have a lot of things that I can actually do. And some of your users, or maybe majority of your users, depending on where they are in the world, might be experiencing this as well. So how do you know? How do you treat them then? The main answer to that is to measure. Measure. Consider measuring and treating these users in terms of cohorts. So consider having a look on all of the users you acquired at this period as a separate cohort and analyze how they interact further with your app. And by the way, you have to do this quite soon because countries are now beginning to ease lockdowns and restrictions, which means there could be another major shift happening right now or maybe quite soon. Another thing, oh, and before I jump to that, I also have to say that, for example, I'm based in Europe and I know that lockdowns here are getting less strict. So that's why I'm saying that you have to do this soon. I'm not quite sure in Latin America because actually the peaks are just happening there now, or Russia, or maybe even Asia. But the thing is that you need to monitor these so that you can be well and better prepared. Now, another thing that you need to do is to follow up correctly with unique post-quarantine campaign strategies. So, for example, McKinsey and Company released these great insights with their consumer behavior analysis post-COVID, where they've measured they've measured people's optimism about economic recovery after COVID-19. So some countries might be more willing to spend later on, while some not yet. Focus on what you can react on. And the last one is to prepare your mobile app marketing strategy in the new normality. Undoubtedly, this crisis has changed us and the way we see what normal is. I was just telling to the MCs a while ago that I am not sure if I'm still gonna go to the cinema right after they allow me to do so. So you as a mobile app marketer, you know that we are not going really back to how it was before. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because we just need to know how to better prepare our apps in the three different areas that we have shown. To close, just remember that no matter what, mobile app is here to stay. Do not underestimate the power of staying relevant in this time, and also do not underestimate the power of understanding how to quickly adapt to situations. So I have 3 minutes left. And to that, I want to say thank you very much, everyone, for your time. I hope my talk was useful and that you've gained a bit of insight and actionable tips that you would like to try later on your mobile app marketing in the time of COVID. And again, my name is Christinne Cuyugan. Please feel free to follow me on Twitter or ping me on any Slack mobile app channels. And yeah, thanks to the MGS team for having me here. And I wish everyone a very nice day.
Thank Christine. I think we don't have any questions so far. People, I'm sure people will follow up after with you and contact you if they have any questions. But it was definitely a good insight and a good and very informative for everyone, I would say. Just one question. In a time
Mhm.
where we're talking about post-COVID and we're talking to the new normal or what is back to normal, what do you think would be the new normal regarding mobile marketing post-COVID, and what you think would be back to the actual normal that was pre-COVID?
To be honest, that's a very tough question because actually, like the new normal is just gonna happen differently for markets because I feel it now. I'm based in Europe and it feels much more normal to me now. And when I talk to my parents, to my family in the Philippines, I know that they're not there yet. So what I think in terms of new normal in mobile app marketing is that we need to be more agile and faster in how we react in situations, because there will be times wherein you really need to react on changing the metadata or actually making new predictions for your UA campaigns, because if you don't do so, you either fail at adapting to what is the current reality, what are the current changes in advertising or even in ASO. If it's and yeah, this is just much more, this is gonna create much more impact if you're able to do it fast. So my, let's say my tip for myself is that I need to monitor how it works, because I'm working a lot with global business units, so I'm talking with different markets, and I know that each market has a different they have a different situation, and therefore they will have different problems and priorities what they need to solve next. And a lot of app marketers here, you might have a global product, so something that is really consumer facing and you're trying to um, sell on its own, but you have to be also careful that you are actually doing it in the right way. Because if it's not yet the time, for example, to encourage people to go out for a run, in health and fitness, you shouldn't do so. So we have to be careful and always make sure to put the safety and priority to your users in the end.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't think we would have time for another question, and I invite the audience to really contact you directly if they have any more questions and if they want to interact. Thank you very much, and have a good day back in Europe. This is just the morning
Thank
for you
you.
guys.
Have
Thank you.
a
Bye.
nice evening, everyone. Bye.